Hello, everyone, and welcome to a long Lion Wing plays of Wild Hunt Festival Dankai Survey Brigade. This is Jake, and here with me I have Fern,
Hello.
and we're basically going to be doing like a post-commentary voiceover for a playthrough that we did about like a week or so ago, so that this can go live with the campaign. So what you see in front of you is just a little bit of a setup of the characters that we'll be bringing into this playthrough of Dankai Survey Brigade. I'm going to show them all one at a time. Here's Charlona. Next up is Matsuri. Of course, these are just the base version of the character cards. They will be getting their charge attacks and level 3 skill cards during the setup. But you won't see most of that because once we get past some of this opening part, I really did just kind of edit out as much of the fluff as I could, so that you guys can have like an actual real-time like experience of what just watching the game being played. As you can see right there, I jumped straight to the survey mode setup for the game, which is the first part of the game before you get to fight the mid-boss. Fern, did you want to talk to them a little bit about what is in survey mode here, because it's going to be a lot of like jump cut. We're not going to really have time to talk about, a lot of the stuff that goes on, because that'll be for you guys when you experience the game.
So most importantly, in the survey mode, you'll be creating this grid of survey cards. You'll have a deck of 21, and then you'll make this grid of 12 first, and then 9 in the second phase. You'll have the survey board, which you'll reference multiple times throughout your adventure, and eventually you'll be clearing off that space to fight a boss up to twice, and that's essentially it. The book will guide you through a lot of things, and you'll experience the story through that.
Yeah, okay. So when you start survey mode, you do get to pick your difficulty, like I was pointing out on the dashboard a second ago there. We are playing this one on Master, even though we had some of the items printed. Fern and I are pretty, experienced with the game, so our first survey location that we went to was Plaza of Inscriptions.
Yep, and we won't be going over the contents of the book just because we don't want to spoil too much of the story, but this one gave us an item, and I believe this one's a consumable, so we'll just be hanging on to that for now.
Yes. Honestly, after like going back and watching this whole clip and like editing it through, we really did get items that were like pitch perfect to every single boss that we encountered, and every moment had an item, or like every item had its real moment to shine, which I was impressed by.
The only spooky thing is that we just raised the hazard meter a bunch in
Yeah,
the first
so
area.
one of the things that Plaza of Inscriptions did there for us was raise the hazard meter, which you'll notice is a bar on the left-hand side of the survey dashboard that can do a bunch of various different effects on the first round of your encounter, including a really scary one. If you go all the way to the bottom, at the start of the battle, the entire party gets stunned for a turn, which is really unfortunate. Next up, I think that was the laboratory or something like that, which gave us the red crystal ore, which is a neat one, sets a character's red mana all the way to its maximum.
Yep. That's pretty much it. We don't want to go into too many things. I think it raises the hazard meter again. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
does.
sure does. Oh, good.
We're also kind of locking ourselves onto the left side. Positive inscriptions only had a left and up arrow, so we were locked into going into that location, and I think we might be locked into where we're going next as well.
We sure are. I pick it up to point that out here. The middle arrow is the only one that has a card remaining on the board, so we're just going straight again.
So when you're playing on your own, don't be like us.
Yeah, don't be like us. Don't pick don't pick a card that only gives you one path. And then we got this one, Great Pit. This is one of those interesting cards in the book. Fern, I don't know if you want to spoil just a little bit about the strange power that this card holds.
Oh, this is 13.
This is 13, yeah.
Yeah, the game book has some other things that are, let's just say, don't lead to boss fights.
Yes,
And
yeah. A good way to put it. But thankfully,
some locations you'll find do that. We won't be making those decisions.
yes, so we picked a different route, and we got Star Sand for that, which actually, I think happens on any of the routes. Now,
Oh
if
yes,
I
all of
remember
the
correctly,
outcomes give you star sand.
which is so strange, and our hazard meter is capped out, which is not good at all.
Here we are with one option again.
Yep, one option once again, this time going to the middle card in the route. And Artificial Lake. Now, I don't recall exactly what happens on this one. I think we gain an item from it, but that may be it.
I think it's crystal fish.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, this one has a lot of outcomes, but you need specific items to acquire those outcomes. So
Right.
the base one is crystal fish.
Well, Crystal Fish definitely coming in clutch later, and we'll be making plentiful notice of that when it happens. So, all right, now that we've finished the first part of our survey adventure, we will get the chance to pick up the caution board, which should be at the top of your play area. Flip that sucker over, and we'll be able to see the 3 mid bosses that you have the chance to fight.
Yeah. So the other thing about this is that you'll see these numbers. So that is the total of the numbers that you came across. There they are. Add up the ones digit, you get the ones digit. Technically, it's a modular 10, but whatever. Uh,
So
and then
three,
that
three,
puts you
three, and 1 puts us at 10.
exactly 10, which means our ones digit is 0, and that on the board means we get to pick who we're fighting. So we decided to fight, I believe, the plant chimera this time.
We sure did.
I don't know. We think it's funny.
I think he's cool. I'm actually glad that we kind of left Killer Rabbit to Mike from One Stop Co-op Shop because he obviously is a Monty Python fan, and also, as he mentions in his video, but also I think that Killer Rabbit is a neat callback to the original game. But I was definitely glad to see more new
New
content
faces.
from yeah.
Yeah, there's only so many versions of Killer Rabbit we can have.
Exactly.
It's interesting enough, I think Mike also had it 0, so he chose Killer Rabbit, so
That's so
whatever.
funny.
Yep,
All
here we
right.
got our Plant Chimera. It's got a boss drop. It's also got an extra card, so we'll be dealing with a unique mechanic this boss brings into the battlefield. Boss drop, of course, is when you kill it, you get that item. Certain relics are only boss drops.
Yes.
There's that extra
Extra
card.
card.
It is a primary target, which I believe Mirage Crystal is now being reworded to being a primary target as well. It is a shield, essentially, for the boss, and then
Yes.
it has an effect that happens when the shield breaks. Oh, there's our die.
Little chance to show off the battlefield die. This is, of course, like everything you see in this video, prototype stuff. Obviously, the cards are going to be a little bit thicker. The battlefield die will not be 3D printed, etc. So at the start of the, or sorry, not at the start, at the end of the first round, the boss attack will be locked to 17. I'll flash a graphic up on that when it actually happens. So we roll for the battlefield. We're going to be starting on star, and we'll get started here. I believe we put the first token on Kemuri.
Yeah, that sounds right.
There we go. All right. And I immediately go to punch for 1, and then Fern reminds me that we have to defeat defeat the clone first.
Yeah.
The certain benefit of having someone watching over your shoulder playing the game, because even as someone as storied as us can absolutely make rules mishaps from time to time.
Oh, I'm sure we make at least one mistake in this going further as
Oh,
well.
100%. I think I counted maybe 1 or 2 forgettings of rage activation against Baphomet. That was a good one. But needless to say, so the effect that you saw on the screen there for the clone is when you defeat him, both the boss and everyone in the party will take 1. This is actually a really neat effect because it coincides really well with Kemuri, because his passive from both bear and tiger form will allow him to do extra stuff. So here it is on the screen now. The effect that happens at the end of the first round, lock 17, which is the party becomes poisoned and slept. Now, Fern, would you like to explain why this is really bad for the first, 4 turns of this round?
Yeah, so normally poison and sleep is kind of weird because you get a damage from poison, which means you wake up from the sleep, unless you're immune to poison or sleep, of course. Uh, Naturally, we decided to pick the anti-poison Matsuri variant, which means that we're not taking damage from poison on our turns. which also means we don't wake up on our turn. So we're essentially locked out of the game until the boss hits us.
Yes, which is extremely unfortunate. We roll Moon here, which locks the next boss attack to 10, which we will get to momentarily. But now, at the start of Matsuri's turn, he will heal 1 from his Poison Regen, which is a unique effect of his upgraded charge attack. And then everyone else, including Matsuri, will remain asleep.
Yeah. So uneventful second round here, but it looks like the boss doesn't do much either. So
Yeah. Well, boss attack locked to 10. Like I said, I'll flash it on the screen in a second here, but he'll just be boosting his attack for next round, and also, unfortunately, restoring the clone's HP, which is a pain. But hopefully you enjoy some of our suffering here, because it only gets worse, and I'm just going to foreshadow with that. Thinking about our items here, unfortunately, none of them are going to be able to help us at this time. A lot of them are like reducing the boss attack die, or flipping over dice that are rolled, or gaining mana. There we go, there's the attack. So the items can't even save us here either.
oh,
Here we go. We go down to Sun Battlefield at the bottom of the star track, which is just the lowest HP character heals by 3.
yep. So that doesn't help us. Boss is still existing, and we're still locked out of doing things until it hits us. So
Yes. So once again, another attack. This time, I think the boss rolls on 3 dice. That's looking like a 14 there.
mm-hmm. And that's a spooky one, because I think it does damage based on the hazard meter, which we have maxed out at the moment.
We sure do. Party minus hazard level. And clone plus 2. But that doesn't matter because it's already full. So everybody takes 3, wakes up from sleep, and now we are in a lot of pain, but
I think
able
it's
to play
5
the
actually.
game.
It's 5 because it got +2
Right.
attack.
It's the plus
last round.
2 from the boost.
Arguably, we could have used Crystal Fish on this round to not make it do that attack, but
Definitely true, but I think the spot we put it later is was
yeah,
even
Crystal
more
Fish
pivotal
was
than
fun.
this.
So here we're just doing some punches. I think Kimuri might transform here.
Yeah, I believe so. We're really just trying to gain some mana. Getting Matsuri to perform any amount of healing is going to be important going forwards. Charlona building up the elements to try and like beat him down as best we can. It's not looking too great for us right now.
It sure isn't. And the fact that everyone took 5 means that we're kind of in a rough spot too, and we need that healing to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the transformation. One thing we did notice about that is taking damage means you can deal damage back to the boss. So if you pop the clone thing and
Yeah.
it deals 1 damage to everyone in the boss, well then you hit the boss again. So that's nice.
I don't believe I did it for every single one, but for a few of the Kemuri Tiger like strike back triggers, I did flash that bit of the text on the screen. Here we're opting to use Red Crystal Ore to give Matsuri max red mana, so that he can perform a healing to keep our group stabilized.
Yep. So this one heals everyone for 4 and gives them poison and paralyze. Of course, Matsuri is really good at putting ailments on your party, which is sometimes a bad thing. One other thing is that we played this before we had made that final balance change. I believe the current text as of our final work is it doesn't heal Matsuri anymore. So if you want to heal Matsuri, you're going to have to actually use that poison regen, or you're going to have to protect them in some other way.
Yes. Which in turn, of course, will allow us to actually do some really unique things with team compositions, right? We want to make
talked
sure
a
that
lot about.
tanks don't feel like they're kind of useless when they play. Here we go. Here's a passive trigger from Kimuri for an extra damage.
Yep. We talk a lot about Urase not having a real place in the game. Like, he's pretty useful, but Luca offers more technical powers a lot of times. Urase being that tank who I believe is also immune to poison or something like that, is very good pair with Matsuri now.
Yeah, it's either that or paralysis.
I think it's
I,
paralysis.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's Okla who's resistant to poison.
Ah, there you go.
And then, of course, Kimuri Bear form also has a taunt. So characters with taunts now have like a specific reason to be played with Matsuri as, hey, Matsuri doesn't heal themselves, so
Have to
you
try to
need to
let regen
protect
do that
them.
work in between.
Yeah, you need to protect them either with a secondary healer or with someone who can take aggro on those times when Matsuri is going to take the damage.
Right. Which is, of course, a unique dynamic.
Mhm.
Think right here we're going for. Oh no, that was just a punch for mana. And
Yeah, a lot of this is building mana. A Charlona is, I think, locked into the cycle of punch for one, use skill for one element.
yeah, which is kind of unfortunate because now that we've got even one element on her, she's looking for very specific numbers, which only gets progressively more difficult as the game goes on. All right, so for those of you who have given Myra's skills a little bit of a look, or if you were around for some of our other Beyond the Hunt episodes, we've talked at length about how Myra utilizes the ailments that she has applied to herself to deal explosive damage to the boss. Pairing her with Matsuri is an extremely easy way to get your ailments up, but then you have to make sure that you're capable of actually expending those at the right time to make sure that you're getting maximum value here. Kemuri getting hit for 2, Matsuri getting hit for 2, but Kemuri is going to be able to strike back. The rage effect is going to go off, which is going to heal the clone again. Kind of annoying, but so be it. The clone heals for 2, and now we're on to, I think that's boss lock 15.
I don't think it goes that high. I don't remember.
Well, we'll see it in we'll see it in 4
I'll
turns.
see in a second.
All right, so here's another
Yeah,
massive heal from Matsuri. But again, you'll note here that Matsuri didn't have. If he did have damage on him, it was like 1. So that heal didn't exactly do a whole lot. And it's a situation where the rest of the party desperately needed it. There we go. We're going to get an experimental brew off to finish off getting all 3 physical ailments, which will allow Myra to do a massive catalytic burst when she gets her next turn.
yeah, and we were waiting for Moon there because the experimental brew checks what the battlefield is, and Moon is the one that gives you the middle ailment confusion.
Yes.
Would get turned into blind there. The other interesting thing about Matsuri that we talked about extensively was that the regen and the big heal all kind of work uh, against each other in a way. If you're keeping everyone topped up with the healing, then your regen isn't useful, and if you're regenning, then you don't need to heal everyone. So
Exactly.
making the heal not affect Matsuri makes the heal even better, and it also makes the regen more uh, it makes it stand out better. And that also means that you have more pressure to guard Matsuri because now you don't have a bunch of incidental healing on them. You have to protect them and they protect everyone else.
Right. Matsuri is like effectively totally reliant on that regen in a composition like this where you're just playing one healer.
Hmm.
All right. So looks like that. Right, so we
There
knocked
goes
out the
the
clone
clone
here.
again.
There's another Kemuri proc for an extra damage. And once again, that effect is exclusive to Tiger form. Boss attack
Oh,
lock
we are
to
locked at
15
13-15.
there.
Yeah.
Party minus hazard clone heals. Again, really rough. This time only 3 damage, though.
Yeah, not boosted. We'll also notice that Charlona has 2 elements right now, and they are opposing elements. I think it's like fire and wind or something like that.
Yeah.
Charlotta either needs fire and earth or water and wind, to do something or all four. So having those two means that you still can't do anything with your skill two.
Yeah, she is unfortunately a sitting duck at the moment. All right,
All
there's
right,
the
there's the
big
catalytic burst.
catalytic.
I think we were debating on what element to get rid of. I think blind was the way to go, just because
Definitely.
basic attack is nice. And one of the other things that Matsuri kind of does is by either putting constant poison or constant paralysis on someone, or putting both on someone and removing one of those effects. If you play the poison route, you kind of get locked out of playing charge attacks forever. And from my experience, people take way more charge attacks than they should. Now, that's not to say you should never take charge attacks,
Well,
but
you'll see later on in this playthrough that even though I feel like the way that Fern and I play is very methodical and very trying to build mana, use skills. It's a puzzle for us. Whenever I put new players in front of Karadia, I think that they really enjoy the feeling of the randomness of the charge attack, so they're gonna go for it. Putting Matsuri, playing Matsuri at all and locking them out of the charge attack is kind of hilarious. But also, maybe will force people to try to see the game and see the puzzle in a different light.
right. There's always this cost benefit analysis to deterministic damage and outcomes versus non-deterministic damage and outcomes, and there's some science on this, I believe. People value higher variance a little higher than they should. So, because charge attacks are expected to give you about the same value as a basic attack, technically it's a little bit more just because you're taking the extra risk and you're not sure what you're going to get. Because of that value, people often opt to take the charge attack, and that can lead to devastation in the wrong outcomes.
Yeah. Also, I'm gonna make a notice here that during this playthrough, we totally forgot to activate this boss's overdrive, where every time the boss is in Sun, he heals for one. So I am gonna make
Uh,
mental note of
yeah, that was the one time we did it.
where this boss's HP should be as
That's
we
this
finish
round.
this round. So that's
It's the
this.
first time.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
round he'd be +1. Should be at 11.
Yeah, it's really funny because if I remember correctly, even though we forgot to do it, it like didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it barely went off at all. That right there was the first instance of it, which is just really funny to me. Like you think, oh, I guess to be fair, right? By the numbers, Sun appears on the battlefield what, like a third of the time, or like close to 50% or something like that. It really didn't happen like at all. Here,
Yeah,
unfortunately, Charlona will be knocked out due to that boss lock 8. So we
yeah,
lose her now, and I think I was sitting at the table at this point, and I was like, well, we just keep going.
yep. So one thing that we kind of glossed over is Myra finally did the boosted basic attack off of Experimental Brew. One interesting thing about Experimental Brew is it gives you two setups, technically. It gives you a Catalytic Burst setup, and it gives you a big basic attack, because it gives you 3 basic attack buff. So in the right circumstances, that ability can set you up for 4 damage 2 turns in a row. Really nice, but you do have to be all ailmented to do it, and that's kind of an issue.
Yes, and of
Uh,
course, we just hit the battlefield space that removes all party ailments and stun, so Myra can no longer do another catalytic burst. There we go. We opted for an attack with Kamuri because it would have been nice if we could get some extra damage, and we miss and take 1. But because we're in bear form, we do not take any damage.
right, we also switched Kimmery over to Bear form, and that is a flat 1 damage reduction to all incoming damage, which includes the charge attack, which is nice.
Okay, here we go for another heal to try to get the group back on their feet. Charlona is knocked out at this point.
Yep. You'll notice that Matsuri's heal is a hybrid cost. It's either red-red or red-blue. That's a really interesting take that we did. That change happens at level 3. So at level 2, it is 2 red, and there's no flexibility.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, also the other thing about that sun thing is that when we started entering the overdrive, it was on sun, so it doesn't heal.
Right.
Uh,
The
and
battlefield did
that
not
was
resolve to sun when
yeah.
we landed into overdrive.
And then we had to wait like 2 extra turns for the battlefield to reset, and then another 2 turns for it to get to sun again. So it's like it
Yeah.
really did not happen.
So let's see. Let's see. Did we overkill by 2?
I think we overkilled by 1, which is enough
Which it
because it
would have been
happened
exactly
on the
enough.
second time. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So this is the
These are
turn we rolled a 13, which would have been pretty bad. I think this is the one where we opted for Star Sand to reduce this roll by 5 so that we could get it down to 8.
Oh yes, because the 13 gives it the shield again.
Yes. Yeah.
So we said, hey, don't get a shield so that we can.
So that we can win the game. All right, so there we are. Going to use Star Sand, denoting that by flipping it over. Boss attack reduced by 5, so that's going to put us down to 8. Or the 7 to 9 range, I should say, which is main takes 3 and poison. Which is nothing to Kimuri. He'll only take 2 from that due to bear form, and he's already poisoned. Rage goes up. Duration down, coin over, and we should be going to the top of Star.
Yep. Star. I believe top star doesn't do much for us right now. It's like charge attack
No,
3.
charge attack can't be activated on 3. It's kind of nothing.
So it's not really that much of a problem.
Yep. We catalytic for. Is that for 3
Damage.
or 4 right there or something like that? And
Oh yeah, okay. So we start off with the catalytic, so we would have had overkill damage to basic attacks.
yeah, and then Kimuri punch, and we're out of there. So we
Yeah.
defeated the plant chimera, which gives us the chimera. What is it? Chimera's mutation core, which is going to come in extremely clutch for the second boss.
Yep. And if you weren't able to read that, Chimera's mutation core allows us to ignore boss overdrive and latent power for 1 round.
All right, jump
We
cut.
didn't get any equipment in this game.
No, yeah, we didn't, which is interesting. You feel like, I don't know, the deck for relics is kind of, I would say, skewed more towards consumables, if anything. But there are definitely some really nice equipment items in there.
Yeah. All right, so we start off with 2 locations. I think we lock ourselves into like 1 path again. I don't
Yes,
remember.
I believe we do. This time we're
Oh
opting
no.
for Illusionary Oasis, which thankfully keeps us not locked like the other path would have.
There we go. The other thing that does is it fully resets the hazard meter.
Which was a super nice draw. If that did
Yeah.
not happen, I think we would have been cooked on the final boss fight.
Yeah, as you may have noticed in that Planet Chimera fight, a hazard meter being at 3 was dangerous because it made that attack do 3 to everyone. Had it been at 1, it would have been a lot less of a problem. And the final boss fight, I think, will have hazard meter 1 to start off, so that really helps in certain cases.
Absolutely. I think we went to the refinery here. Yep, there it is.
There it goes.
Which I think the result of that was like hazard meter -1, and we got. Was there a 4th item here? I
There
suppose
was
not.
no item. I think there was something where we could have gotten an item, but we didn't have the thing for
Right,
it.
we had to meet like a sequence of interactions. And we've got our last 2 here, and I believe we took theater.
I think so. Theater also gives us a nice item.
Yeah, theater gives us. The theater gives us a really good item. Again, like I said at the start of this playthrough, this final boss, it's kind of like we were building this perfect, funny symphony of like tools that we could use. Okay, back up a little bit, but we're still hazard level 1, which will definitely help as we jump cut over to the final boss check, which if you've seen the hint card, you'll see these symbols all over it. And basically, what you have to do for the final boss check is you look at the hint card and you check all of the locations you surveyed and see if you can make any of these 4 symbols out of the cards that you visited.
And then the book will tell you which boss to fight.
Yes.
Uh, I believe we got. I'm not even gonna
Yeah, you'll you'll
spoil it.
you'll see me put it down here. We did absolutely wind up getting the bottommost one.
Oh yeah. We managed to get 4 of those symbols. It's the 4 of the same combination
Yeah.
that we managed to figure out, and then that led us to Baphomet, I believe.
It was either Baphomet or you get to pick one of the two. Which is still really funny, because if we got both, you get to pick your own boss fight. Literally choose your own adventure. All right, so the one that we
Hmm.
get to fight is the Wandering Blood Axe Baphomet. Really great boss art here. Pretty interesting looking boss HP tracker, and
Yep.
we will discuss that in just a second as it becomes relevant.
Yep. You'll also see on that card there was a page number. That's what the page you turn to in the book for story when you finish the boss. And then it also had a little extra card. There it is right here. Like in Nightmare mode with quests, these are essentially side missions that you have to do, and they lower the hazard meter uh, so that you can not die to it raising the hazard meter.
Yeah, I believe, if I recall correctly, the rage effect of Baphomet is hazard level +1. So that thing
Yep.
will be jumping. Alright, so we'll be starting off the fight here with our heroes in pretty much the same condition as they were last time. Spoiler alert, Fern will correct me on this in the video eventually, but the heroes are cleared of all ailments. So they should not be poisoned and paralyzed here. But for the most part,
Yeah.
I think our opener stays the same.
Yeah, you keep everything except for ailments.
Yes. Which is a little different to story mode, where you'd spend your mana in order to heal yourself back.
Yep. Yeah, you get rid of Anna, you get rid of basic attack buff, you get rid of ailments, and you get rid of extra cards, or you get rid of summon cards. Which is relevant for Kamuri, because I think he's still transformed.
Yes, he does come into this fight, I think, with like 2 or 3 duration. And there we roll a Myra Charge Attack 5, which is an absolute doozy to read. But you get 2 mana of your choice in any, effectively any setup. Oh, I think we opt for 1 and 1 here, which puts paralysis back on. Yeah.
The most flexible combination gives you paralysis, so you can't roll it again.
Right.
Yeah, Myra's charge attacks are very interesting. A lot of them are sort of good outcomes from other characters' charge attacks, but with ailments attached to them.
Yes.
Mike used one of them a lot, which is the charge attack 6, which does 2 damage and takes an extra turn, but applies poison to you. Um, that is really nice, but it can also hurt you a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think here. Okay, so we're opting to shapeshift again, go back to tiger form because we spent the red mana.
Yep. It's really funny because Kamuri is a hybrid attacker defender, kind of is how we're portraying him, and the tiger form is the attacker form, and we have 2 other attackers, so we're just sitting here in 3 attackers and 1 healer. When
Hey,
we should really be in 2 attackers, 1 defender, 1 healer.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that was the original outset, but because Kemuri is so flexible, we're just jumping back and forth every couple turns.
Mm-hmm. Boss attack was a little bit of damage there. It wasn't that much.
Yep, little bit of damage, nothing too scary. I forgot to activate the hazard meter effect, which is at the first round. The boss attack will do 1 extra damage, so it's just 1 extra for Matsuri, 1 extra for Myra. Not too shabby. And we're going to Sun.
Yep. So boss overdrive, and I guess we're not really going to land on it very often because we try to avoid it naturally. But the boss overdrive for this one is when you reach one of those highlighted squares, the boss immediately heals based on the square it lands on. So a lot of this fight is figuring out how you're going to get past those thresholds or how you're going to use them tactically, because one of the side quests is trigger the boss's overdrive. And I think we don't even finish that quest, we just try to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, we effectively opted to avoid it as much as we could. Here's an ambush from Kimuri, one of the extra skills you get for being in tiger form. There's a little mention of the boss overdrive. Every time it reaches a space, it'll immediately heal the amount of HP on the space. Or Matsuri charge attack coming in clutch here, 2 damage, 1 blue mana.
Yep.
The hard part about this boss here is really just trying to avoid those what's it called? Avoid those overdrive spaces, because the boss healing for free is really annoying.
Yeah.
But not to mention the space at that 13 there, the first overdrive of the second half of the boss fight. That one is an HP plus 2, which you'll see at some point. We kind of have like some downtime talking about what the heck we're going to do here. Here's where I had suggested that we use Pioneer of Truth, which gives the entire party a +1 basic attack buff to allow us to just kind of skyrocket past the next few squares.
Yeah, we just get to skip over all the overdrive squares with basic attack buff, which is nice.
Really, really handy for us.
Yep.
We are doing this at 3 characters. So
Oh yeah.
it was really important that we really push our advantage as much as possible. Now,
Charlotte's still down, by the way.
yeah, Charlona is still down. So I'm going to flash on screen here the weak spot card. The top quest is hit the boss with basic attack buff. I'll be putting, what's it called? I'll be putting tokens on that in just a second here.
We forgot to do it.
Yeah, it's all right. We do remember to do it. I just wanted to flash that so you guys know what's going on.
One other thing that I want to talk about specifically with Kimuri is, despite being a attacker and defender at the same time, he's got a really low health pool. So the downside of all that utility and flexibility is if you're playing attacker mode, you just die. Like, all your abilities hurt yourself. All your damage is based on you hurting yourself. So, your hit points get really low really fast.
Yeah, it is pretty dangerous. Matsuri being, I would argue, one of the more potent healers definitely helps. Manad has that soothing salve too that could be really, really good to pull you out of a pinch. But then you have to consider like healing Kimuri is also kind of pulling away healing that could be going to the rest of the party too.
Yep.
There we go. So we realize now that we've hit the boss with 3 basic attack buff hits. And then I believe we come back for the other quest. I think. There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Which we
triggered it
couldn't
once.
remember if we had activated once or twice. Believe it wound up being once.
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. You may notice a slight blip in the recording. This is going to be editing Jake and Fern coming back once again, because unfortunately we lost the audio for the second half of this, but that is no big deal. Currently, we are halfway through Baphomet here. Three party members in tow. There is a 4-die boss activation going off. Thankfully, a low roll. Looking like 9. This is a attack. I think I said in the previous part that this attack came up a bunch of times. Kimuri's going to re-proc here. Now, I can't recall if this was before or after we had a little do-si-do. I believe it's before. The little do-si-do around the 13 HP mark.
Mm-hmm. So current battlefield heals everyone,
Yep.
which is nice, but it will heal the boss later, so
Kind of
that's also
annoying. Oh, that's so funny that this is where we have to come back to, because now we can have the conversation again about being on the wrong side of the battlefield to bring Charlona back. The only
Mm-hmm.
way that we could have done it.
Yeah.
And sorry about that camera
We
bump.
actually took a really interesting experimental brew here. We give Myra sleep with the hope that the boss will attack her to wake her up.
Yes. Excellent remembering of that strategy there, because I definitely recall that being like a, kind of like a weird contention point, but if we had gone ahead and just kept punching, the boss would have recovered way too much HP for us to even, consider dealing with again, as our
Yeah, and
resources are slowly getting drained.
most attacks hit the active target on this boss fight, so
Right. And just like the attack before, well, actually, this time we rolled the 10, which the issue with that one is that the boss is going to deal damage to himself, but then he's going to pop his rage off, which is definitely not something we want. So we are going
and
to
not
use...
Myra.
Yes, and not punch Myra, which is even bigger, actually. So we're going to opt to use a Notebook of Inscriptions, reducing one die to 0. This time, actually opting for the 2. Normally, you'd consider taking, obviously, the biggest die out, but for this situation, it's best to have the boss hit Myra so that we can remove sleep.
Yep. And the incidental damage there is fine. Camry's not transformed, I believe, anymore, so we don't have... yeah, Camry's not transformed anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't hit into the overdrive.
Well, I think what happened there was that Kemuri's reactive damage is a you may.
Oh, that's what it
So
was.
we
Camry
opted
was transformed.
not to.
Yeah.
Which would have, given the boss an extra 2 health on top of the 4 he just got for free from the battlefield. How considerate. Now we opt to go back into bear form because the gas in the health tank is running thin.
Yeah, 4 HP is not much.
All right. So here we opt to do something really cheeky. Shoutouts to Fern for this play. We activate Chimera's mutation core, which this round allows you to ignore latent powers and overdrives.
Yep, so that means that the overdrive that normally heals the boss just doesn't do anything, and because there are no dice on overdrive spaces, we end the round, the boss is essentially going to not roll anything. And when you roll nothing, you get a 0, and that means nothing happens.
Which is fantastic. Fern, I think you also mentioned last time that this also comes into effect with effects like Gambit of Destruction, and who else?
No, but of inscriptions and Lucky Rabbit's Foot, anything that removes dice, if you remove all the dice and the result becomes 0, then it has nothing, because the boss attack chart has no option for 0.
All right, and there's Heat Haze, the rage effect going off, hazard meter going up, boss healing a little bit of HP back, not too terrible. Matsuri, I believe, punching for a 1. Myra punching for... Oh, nope, sorry, not punching. We are catalytic bursting. Trying to get some damage out now that the boss is kind of... We don't have rage looming over our heads or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice 3 damage. Kemuri's gonna punch for a blue. And the boss board says we are locked to 12, which deals 2 to the boss. Rage goes up by hazard level, and then he's going to attack with an extra die on the next round. Rage, duration, coin, the usual stuff. We'll roll for the battlefield. And we're going to star. Charge attacks locked to 2s.
Yep, so that is kind of a problem. We had kind of set up Myra so that she could charge attack this round, but we chose not to because a 2 is not great.
Yeah. So we're going to experimental brew, which is definitely installing 4 damage on a basic attack later, as well as recharging her catalytic burst if we can. I think for Kemuri, we opt to punch for 1 red, which will then trigger the overdrive, putting him back a space. But that'll allow us to further the quest, which we don't really worry about necessarily.
We just not that much to do with Kimuri, unfortunately.
Yeah. His job right now is to stay alive. We're going to Cleansing Moonlight Kemuri. I think this was so that we could possibly activate a charge attack with him.
Yeah, it's to open up charge attacks. Because we need to be doing 2 damage at a time, and the only way Kemuri does that is with charge attacks or with skill 3, which we need 2 blue mana for.
Right. So there's the boss attacking on 3 dice according to his board, but we rolled a 4th because of the Sigil of Corrosion. He's going to activate that again. Now, lots of rage popping off and, scary more attack dice coming out next round. But, the boss did kind of help us deal damage to himself. This play was kind of mixed because, rolling 3 dice is already kind of guaranteed around that 10 to 12 range as it is. In Rage going to go up twice again. Maybe that was a little bit of our foresight there, knowing that was coming. So resetting the Rage track kind of allowed us to dodge out just a bit. Kemuri's going to charge attack here. It is a 3.
Yep, and this is where we debate on whether or not we should use Crystal Fish, because a 3, I believe, isn't that great of a charge attack for Kemuri. 4 isn't great either, but it doesn't do damage to the boss, and instead gives 2 blue mana, and that's to help set up for the future.
Yes.
And then it also means that any dice that we roll in the rest of the round, we can flip over.
Precisely. So switching Kemuri's 3, which is, I just believe, 1 boss damage duration plus 2, to a 4, which is a miss, but damage, a miss, damage himself for 1, there it is, and enhance times 2, which is really what we were after, because now we've got Bear Arms in the back to help us secure the kill later.
Mm-hmm. We're actually going to clear ailments from Myra again, and that's so that we can use charge attack. She doesn't really have anything set up right now. She's got a basic, but with Crystal Fish active, charge attacks are more guaranteed to do something.
And of course, we go ahead and roll the natural 6, which is 2 big damage, which is what we're looking for. She gets poisoned, and take another turn.
Yeah, a really good result. Poison, not too much of a problem because we still have immunity poison, so great option. And then I think we opt for the basic here instead of another charge attack, even if we're still under Crystal Fish, just because guaranteed damage is good.
Yes, and now we've got ourselves down with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Rolling the odds twice is still not great.
Right. So the boss will be attacking us with 5 die this time, but once again, we are still under the effect of Crystal Fish, which allows us to turn any die upside down for the whole round.
And we also did that, so we lowered the hazard meter.
We realized we procced the first quest, so hazard meter's down at level 2, which is super handy. Roll the dice, and that right there is an 18 off the bat, which I believe says main character takes 7 and confusion, which will absolutely obliterate Kemuri.
Yeah, that's not great. So here we're debating on how many dice to flip over. The most obvious solution is just flip the 2 6s over, and you end up with an 8. But I think we were debating on flipping the 2 to a 5 to get to 11, but I believe that's the rage up, which would heal the boss. So we were thinking about whether or not that was useful or what we were going to do. I think the end result is we just flip over the 2 6s and eat what's coming.
Yeah. Which is definitely better in the long run, considering, once again, Whirlwind Slash comes out. Kemuri will take, 1-2 damage at most. And we can absolutely muscle our way through the end of the combat this way. So there it is. Kimmery takes Hazard, which is only 1. Or is 2, sorry, but reduced by 1 because he's in bear form. Everyone else will take 2. Top of Sun, no evasion. Not really relevant in this composition. Kimmery ticking down to 1 on the bear form.
Here's the basic with Matsuri.
Yep. Matsuri punches for 1. Not really mattering that much. We'd get an advancement on that bottom quest.
I think all we're looking for here is a 2 damage outcome with Myra, which luckily we're not paralyzed, so we can go for.
And there's the 5, which is exactly what we need.
Yep. And some mana. I don't think it's entirely useful, but hey, her 5 is really good when you're building mana.
Yeah, definitely, we'll take 1 and 1. We'll get the paralysis back on, which is what we would have had anyway if Matsuri was healing. And then if we needed Catalytic Burst next round, we'd have it. But thankfully, we can secure the victory in combat through Bear Arms, which will give us even more starting duration if we were to go for another round. But we have successfully cleared this boss fight. All right.
Yep.
Well, shoutouts to Fern for being over my shoulder for this one. This was a lot of fun. We hope you guys enjoyed the watch. Fern, did you have anything you wanted to say to people watching?
No, just take a look at the Kickstarter, follow if you can. We got a lot of stuff coming for you, and a lot of stuff even outside of the Kickstarter coming for you in Wild Hunt Festival content. So be sure to look out for it.
All right. Couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, by the time you guys are seeing this, the campaign will be live. So thank you so much for watching this Lionwing long play of Kradia Wild Hunt Festival Dankai Survey Brigade. Definitely make sure to check out the Kickstarter, which will be linked in the description. And we hope to see you at a future Beyond the Hunt. Thanks so much for watching, guys.